So, welcome to Amplified Conversations, and this is where music and branding and career building collide. So, whether you're an artist or an industry pro or just passionate about music, this is where we're going to be diving into insights and the strategies and the stories that shape success. Try not to have any fluff, it's just real talk to help you level up. So, I'm Bobby. I've been an entertainment industry professional and a marketing strategist for more than 25 years. I'm also a Recording Academy voting member quite recently, and a Grammy U mentor. And with me today on this very first episode of Amplified Conversations, I have Alexx Antaeus, who's a Grammy-winning producer. He's a Recording Academy voting member, and his collaboration list and legacy is legendary. Like, talking about the Rolling Stones, we've got Earth, Wind and Fire, and most recently, Julian Marley, which you won a Grammy for, in the best remix recording category. Alexx, welcome to Amplified Connections.
I feel so close, even though I'm in New York and you're all the way in Melbourne, Australia. It feels so warm.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But I love having people. Of course, we were both there at the 67th Grammys, and we didn't actually get to cross paths, even though we were probably in the same room and the same event multiple times. But we've been connected on social media. We've kind of been connected over the past year or so, and I've followed your journey, and it's been really exciting watching you go through that nomination process and all the excitement that comes around it. And then, finally getting that,
The excitement is the surface.
Right.
You're forgetting the hard work.
I know. But I think we sometimes get so caught up in the thing that we're doing that you have to sit back. And I found that at the Grammys itself, being at the Grammys, it's very tempting to want to kind of start recording everything with your phone, because this was the first time I was actually attending the Grammys. But I had to keep reminding myself to put it down and just sit back and be in the moment and enjoy the room you're in. Because, it's a room I've looked at on television and YouTube for the past 40 years. So you want to kind of immerse that, be in that moment and enjoy and look around and actually try and print these memories into your head, And I think before we get into any of the deep stuff, and, of course, here we're here talking about your book and many other things. So, your book is So You Want to Win a Grammy, which is quite a very obvious name. And I think it's a great name. It's, makes it quite obvious as to what the book is about. But before we get into any of the deep stuff around the book or your experiences, I wanted to ask you one thing. So what's the weirdest or most unexpected moment you've had at the Grammys to date?
Well, it's not a matter of being weird or unexpected, but I remember the feeling of hearing my name winning a Grammy. That was just over a year ago, 2024. And most people thought that the feeling I had would be excitement. For me, it wasn't excitement. For me, it was relief. It felt like some heavy pressure was lifted off my shoulders, because I felt I had a responsibility towards my team and Julian and everyone involved, and I really wanted to deliver for my team. So when I heard our name announced that we won, it just felt okay. So it was the feeling of not losing. That was the excitement, that we didn't lose. As opposed to the excitement of winning, it was the opposite, is, okay, we didn't lose.
And
that's unique.
That's fantastic to hear. And I think, hopefully I'm going to get to experience that at some point in my career. But it's always funny, when you see, and I'm not sure how it was this in the other ceremony, they have the cameras on all the nominees, right? So you're sitting there with a camera, and most likely there's going to be a camera on you while they're announcing the nominees. And then when they announce the winner, if you're not the winner, you still have to hold that face, until for a period of time, right? I've always found that to be the funniest thing to watch. I mean, it would be horrific to actually experience that myself. But you've got to have that face of, yes, well done. Despite you can't actually let your default reaction come through. Is that something you kind of experienced at the time?
Well, first of all, if you are a nominee, you're already a winner. Think about that.
Of course.
People within the industry already believe that. When you, out of thousands, end up being in the top 5 in your category,
yeah,
that's a win.
Of course. It defines you.
The difference between the person who ends up winning the Grammy or the other four nominees is not necessarily that one had a better album or a better performance. It just so happened that the voters voted that way. Once you get in the top five, all those albums, all those artists deserve the Grammy. End of story.
100%.
Maybe somebody got one vote less or one vote more. Nobody knows that. We don't have that number, and it's better that way. So the fact that somebody didn't get the Grammy is not a loss, really.
I know.
You're still a winner. Being up there, with the other four names, that's a win.
100%. And I think that's when, for me, voting this year, or last year, sorry, and for this season, this awards, for the very first time, it kind of dawns on you while you're doing it. It's a very surreal thing. I'm not sure, how you've been doing this for a while now, but I think I want to know how you felt. So the first time I went in there, and of course you're prepared. You get all this communication, you get all the emails saying, voting's going to be open, and, this is what the process is, and blah, 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 and, this is the date, and all that stuff. But all that regardless, the first time I logged into the platform and logged into my account, and that thing came up, and you hit it, and you see the categories, and then you go, it's like, holy shit, this is, I think it kind of, the seriousness of it,
it's overwhelming, and it's
dawned on me. It is, man. And I because for me, it was like, hang on, this is not like, I'm doing some random survey thing. Like, what you're doing here could have a massive impact on someone's career and life. Whether, like you said, for nomination or winning or even being nominated, that is now how you are referred to for the rest of your life. It is now part of your identity. It's part of your bio. Everywhere you are introduced, you are going to be introduced as Grammy-nominated artist Alexx or Grammy-winning artist Alexx. And I think for me, that was so I think that put the weight and the ethical kind of consideration around what I was about to do. And I think for me, I still feel this way 10 years from now. What was your experience like when you first went through that process?
First thing we should try to clarify for our listeners and our viewers out there who might not know is that the Grammys, which is the biggest music industry award in the world, happens to be the only one that is not based on popularity or based on sales or streams, but it's based on the Recording Academy voting members voting. So it's basically our own peers that are going to be voting. And that's important for the public to understand, because sometimes they see an artist who is huge, a superstar, that might not end up getting the Grammy, and an artist with a lot less popularity, a lot less streams, might end up getting the Grammy. It's because we base our decisions not on sales, not on popularity, but on the quality of the work.
Gotcha. Yes.
And I think the majority of the Recording Academy members who vote, and that's about over 13,000 of us.
I know. I've heard that number for the first time. I was like,
yeah, it's over 13,000. Of course, not everyone is going to vote in every category because there are limitations on the categories we can vote in. But I think the majority of us take this job, this responsibility seriously. It's not, I like that song, let me vote for it. So-and-so is my friend, let me vote for him or her. It's not like that. We truly take the time to listen to as many projects as we can and try to make an educated decision of who deserves our vote. And it's a very difficult job because of the amount of product. There are like over 20,000 submissions in all the categories. It's nearly impossible to listen to everything. And that's marketing your product becomes very important.
Yeah.
You can vote for someone that don't even know that a project exists. So it becomes your responsibility, my responsibility for the projects that we have done to ensure the fellow voting members know about them projects. Now, we'll never ask for votes. We'll never ask for votes. That's a priority. That is against regulations, and I don't do that. But we ensure that people know. Like I would say, hey, Bobby, I just want to let you know, our new album is out. Could you please listen to it? That's all I can do.
Hence the for your consideration
Exactly. So I'm making you aware of my project.
Yeah.
That a lot of people say they want to win a Grammy, but they don't want to put the work into it. And I try to teach that to a lot of the artists in Jamaica. As you know, I'm involved with a lot of Jamaican artists based
Good.
both in New York and in Kingston, Jamaica. And so I'm very much involved with the reggae industry. And so many artists and producers in Jamaica want a Grammy, but they don't want to put the time into it. And people don't understand it becomes a full-time job during
Yeah.
the period of submission and consideration. It becomes practically a full-time job to educate your fellow voters about your project and say, hey, we did this, we were in the studio, so-and-so produced it, please listen to it, and all that. That's work.
Of course. And I think just to this goes perfectly segues into the first thing I wanted to talk about, which was dispelling the myths of the Grammys, which you kind of went straight into, perfectly segued into that. So, a lot of the people even before I became a Grammy voting member, I got involved in that process. I wasn't very clear about how it happened. And even today, there's a lot of people who think there's like a secret committee. There's like 15 people in a room who are kind of looking out at what's out there, and they kind of decide who the nominees are, and then they decide who the winners are at some point, right? And it's surprising to me that a lot of senior people or very experienced people in the industry all over the world still think that's how it works. So dispelling the myth of the Grammys, and I think that's something that Harvey Mason Jr. said in his speech, is actually allowing for that transparency for the industry to understand how it actually happens. I have people saying, oh, my favorite artist was snubbed. It's like, no, it doesn't mean that. First of all, it's not 15 people in a room deciding.
It is not.
It is not.
That is the furthest from the truth.
First myth, right? But if your artist, as big as you think they are, or as big as a fan you are, however big that song might have been on TikTok or whatever it is, didn't get nominated, it doesn't mean their product was bad or someone blacklisted them. It just means that in the category that they were sitting, there were a lot of other music that came out that was either marketed better or just artistically, relatively artistically for people, better. That's all it is, so it doesn't mean that there's
there is more to it. I think we need to clarify something. What the majority of the public does not know, and it's our responsibility to educate them, is, yes, there is no secret committee that decides. The Recording Academy, all the way to the top, including the CEO, Harvey Mason Jr., including the president, Panos Panay, they don't know who is going to win. They don't know who is going to be nominated. There is no committee that decides who is going to be there. Now, there are committees that decide if a project is eligible, because projects have to meet certain eligibility criteria. For example, they have to be released within the eligibility period, which is usually from October of 1 year until the end of August of next year or something like that. That's 1 year period. A project that was released 3, 4, 5 years ago, it wouldn't be eligible unless it's some kind of a historical recording in historical recording category. Projects have to fall within the eligibility period. That's number one. Projects have to fall within the eligibility in terms of the length. You can have 3 songs that are a total of 8 minutes long qualify to be an album. That's not an album. Maybe one of the songs can be submitted as a single. So a committee is going to look at that to decide if a project that has been submitted is eligible. That's all.
That's it. And also, I think
thousands of submissions every year, over 20,000. They have to go and say, okay, you are eligible because you were released within the eligibility period. And that's it. Once it gets past that, anyone can submit a project.
Yes.
Project can be submitted either through a member of the Academy or through a media company, whether it's a record label. So the first myth that we'll have to clarify, anyone who falls within the eligibility guidelines can be submitted, whether it's a single, an album, an artist. we don't exclude. There is no as long as you meet the criteria. That's all.
That's right. And I think the other thing they do, to my knowledge, is that they will check if you have submitted into the right genre or category. And sometimes if they believe that, it doesn't really sit with that, they may move it to a category they feel is appropriate. But that's there's no artistic consideration.
They're not gonna throw you out. They might move you to a different category, like you said, if they feel your project sounds more like country than pop, but they're not gonna throw you out. The only reason that they might throw you project out is if it doesn't meet the eligibility. Other than that, anyone is eligible to be considered. Another thing that a lot of people don't understand is, in order for an artist or a project to be considered and potentially become nominated, first it has to be submitted.
Of course, it's not picked up yet.
But people were, especially again, back in reggae and dancehall that I'm involved with, where people would say, but such and such artist was one of the biggest artists of the year. And I knew for a fact that that artist's team never submitted the project. So if the project is not submitted, it's not the Academy's fault or the voters' fault.
That's right. So it doesn't matter whether you're Taylor Swift or Beyonce or you or me or my cousin. You actually have to go through the process, or your record label or whoever your management team is. They have to go through the process of actually going, here's the category. We want to go into album of the year, and here's the song of the year, and here's the pop thing or the rock thing. And, and you have to do that. And for the first time, I think a couple of years ago, I had a song in there for the first time. So that's the biggest myth as well. And also, I wanted you to touch on the actual voting process. So there's two. Tell me about, we've got.
It's actually it's a three-part process.
Three-part process, yes.
The first part is obviously submission, which usually happens around July, August. That is the time. Starts sometime in July. I can't remember the exact date, it varies, but it's sometime in July, and usually goes until the end of August. And that is the period that management teams, record labels, artists, they have to submit a project within that eligibility, within that period. So that's step number one. At this step, there is no voting yet. It's just a matter of properly submitting. Again, if your team doesn't submit your project, it's not going to go any further.
Right.
I know that because it happened to an artist from Jamaica, a very famous dancehall artist called Popcan. Popcan, 2 years ago, had a huge album. I loved that album myself. As a matter of fact, that was the year that we won, and I thought he was going to be major competition for us. Only to find out that due to a miscommunication between his record label and his management, neither team submitted it.
Can you imagine the conversation that would have happened after that?
So anyway, that's the first step, submission. Anyone is eligible to submit a project as long as it falls within the eligibility period. We get to the end of August and that submission period ends. The Academy takes a few weeks to clean through things, to listen to things, to see if things are proper. And then sometime in September or October, sometime in October, the first round of voting begins. That's when all of the projects, artists, albums, singles that have been submitted go into the categories, and those lists are becoming available to us, the voters, so we can start voting. The number of submissions in each category varies. It can be as low as 50 or 60 in some of the smaller, obscure categories, or as high as 1,000.
Song of the year, the big six especially.
Some categories, most of them will be around 2, 3, 4, maybe 500. You never know. So that's the first voting, where we look at those lists and we decide, okay, these are my favorite 5 out of these 500.
Yes.
Which that should also tell the public that there is a possibility a great project might not make it, because I can only vote for 5.
That's right. How do you choose between,
So that's the first voting. Once that is done, then the Academy takes a little bit of time and finds out the top 5 in each category.
Of everyone.
That is usually announced early November.
Yeah.
So at this stage, early November, we know who the nominees will be. And then sometime in the middle of December is the second and final voting, where we vote based on those nominations. So out of the 5, each one of us will choose one. And something to clarify, we as voting members cannot vote in every category. We'll have limitations because the Academy believes, and they are correct to believe so, that you cannot be an expert in every genre of music. For example, myself, I will usually vote in categories like, well, in fields, which is a group of categories, but I would normally vote in reggae, I would vote in global, I would vote in Latin sometimes, African, and then again I go into dance music, and because I have a lot of projects there myself. These are the categories I would kind of focus in myself. Sometimes I might go into jazz because I do a lot of listening, and that's a genre I appreciate very much. Some people might vote, for example, only in country and rock. Some people might vote in R&B and children's music. But we cannot vote in all of the fields and in all of the categories. We have certain limitations. With the exception of the big 6. The big 6, any of us can vote, regardless of the other categories we vote in. And the big 6 would be Album of the Year, Song of the Year, Best New Artist, Producer of the Year, Songwriter of the Year.
Non-classical producer of the year. I think, is it Record of the Year is as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's
Record of the Year goes to the artist and the producer. Song of the Year, I believe, goes to the songwriters.
That's right. That's right. And I did that, and I think you're right. So then there's that, and then it goes into the ether, right? And no one hears about it. So people were saying, okay, so who won? It's like, I don't know. Like there's, like you said, there's thousands of people voting. We all go in, in that last 2 weeks of December. This time when you go back to those categories, you only see the 6 or 8, whatever the number was.
You see the 5. Some categories you can go up to 10, but
10,
most is 5.
That's right.
If you see 6 means there was a tie.
That's right. And there was a tie with a win as well this time. And then that's it. And the next time anyone hears about it is when they open that envelope and the Grammy goes too. And that's how it works, right? So I think for me, and like you, as being part of this industry, being part of this world, it is very important to educate not only people who are senior people and other people involved in the space who want to know, but also people who are coming up as artists, who are starting to build their careers, who want to understand how this works. And I know that your book plays a significant part in going through everything that we're talking about now, but it also goes into the tactical components of how you have to, because it is the music industry, it is the music business, right? There is processes and ways, and for every one person that had an amazing idea or amazing song, all the way from, the 1960s or 70s, there were probably 1,000 other people who had great songs and great ideas, but they didn't do some of the other things that are required to be part of this ecosystem that led to the same success, depending on what you define success as, whether it's the monetary success or the awards or all those other things. And that's where it can be skewed, because you see, okay, how are these same people kind of being, facilitated this way all the time? It's like, because they probably understand how the engine works better than others. So, like, what are the key tactical takeaways? I mean, of course, I want people to go and buy your book and to understand. But before we do that, I think you start your book with something very interesting. The book is called So You Want to Win a Grammy. But what is the first thing you say in the book?
Well, people think that what I'm going to talk about in the book is some deep secrets of how to manipulate things to win a Grammy. And that's the furthest from the truth. The most important point I try to get across within the first 2-3 chapters is, don't make music to win a Grammy. Make music for the love of music. Make music because you have a message for the world. I get so many people who reach out to me, they want me to produce their projects, and their reason is because they want to win a Grammy. And I explain to them, I cannot win you a Grammy. I don't give out Grammys. That's not my job.
You have them on the shelf at home.
Yeah, I can order a Grammy for the fake one from China, and I can give it to you if you want. But as far as winning a Grammy, I don't have the formula that is going to guarantee you a Grammy. That's not how it works. All I can do for you is get the best out of you as an artist so we can present a great project to the public. So number one, never create a song, never write music because you want to win a Grammy. Do it for the love of our craft. Do it for the love of music. And once that project is out, marketing it and trying to submit it for a Grammy, that's fine. That's great. But a Grammy should not be your goal when making music. A Grammy should be the excitement and the reward after the music is done. So that's one of the first things I try to tell people. Become the best you can be in your craft. Become the best songwriter, the best producer, the best vocalist, whatever you do, be the best engineer, and make the best music you can make.
That's right.
And when it's time for the Grammys, submit your music and do your marketing.
Yeah. And you obviously, you've gone through that process yourself. You've gone through it multiple times and you have been, awarded a Grammy without giving away, obviously, like I said, I want people to buy your book. I want people to understand all the stuff that goes behind and the work that has to be done. And you've obviously laid it out really well. Give me one thing that you think people will learn from your book that they may not have actually known about before.
Well, they will understand the process. There is a proper process. So let's say the music is made. So we already talked about the importance of making great music, separate from the Grammy. Now we are at the stage of marketing that music to compete. So the most important is they have to understand that there is a process, a proper process. You can't buy a Grammy. You can't pay people to vote for you. It doesn't work that way, okay? There are thousands of people, and each one of us, as you know, votes privately using our computers, right? So even if I tell you, don't worry, I'll vote for you, which I don't do and most of us don't do. But even if somebody tells you, don't worry, I'll vote for you, you don't know if they voted for you. So follow the proper process. And the proper process is following the Recording Academy's guidelines of how to do things. Number one, you have to have a project that is eligible. So ensure that you understand what makes your project eligible. If you're going to create a New Age album, make sure it falls within what New Age is supposed to be. So when people vote, they can say, oh, this is a great New Age album, as opposed to what's wrong with this person. Number two, understand how to properly market your project. You don't beg for votes. You don't ask for votes. You don't promise things to people and say, if you vote for me, I'll vote for you. That's not how it works. Proper way is you let people know about your project, and that's where it ends. How do you let them know? You can take ads in Billboard magazine. Billboard has 3 specific issues that correlate with the different stages of the Grammy season. There is an issue in the submission period, there is an issue during the first voting, and there is an issue for the second voting. So take an ad there and invest a little bit of your money so we, the voters, see your project there. Then you have services, marketing services that do email blasts the proper way, where they send emails to a list of people that they have accumulated are potentially Grammy voters or other industry people. As long as it's done the right way within the guidelines of the Academy, invest some money in getting that done. One of them, for example, is called MoPromo, and they are very legitimate. They follow every rule of the Academy and they do it the right way. It's a small investment and you ensure that a large number of voters at least become aware of the project.
Right.
Okay? So again, if it's a matter of knowing the process. So you have to submit in a timely manner and you have to market your project the proper way. You cannot give free stuff out. For example, you cannot throw a party and invite voting members to drink and eat for free while you promote your project. That is against the regulations of the Academy.
Yeah.
If there's gonna be a party where you play music from your project, that the people have to pay a cover charge or they have to buy their own drinks. You cannot give them free stuff.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Gotcha.
that is against the regulations, basically, because that is taken as you give something for free in order to excite people and potentially vote for you. So these things are big no-nos, and don't violate them, because if the Academy finds out, they could remove your project. And that is not the right way to promote. The right way to promote is making voters aware of your project. That's it. You never ask for votes. You never want to exchange votes. It doesn't work that way. And I can tell you from personal experience over the years, the people I deal with who don't ask each other for a vote, who don't say, so and so, could you please vote for me? Or people call me, Alex, can you vote for me? We don't do that, because that is not the right way. All we do is, hey, could you please listen to my album? That's all. It's a labor of love. We put a lot of time and energy into it, and we believe it's a worthy musical journey. Listen to it. That's it. That's all I have to say. If they think it's worthy, they will vote for me. If they don't, they won't.
That's right. I think you go into some tactical, obviously in your book, you'll get into a bit more detail into some of the ways that again, I always stress to people, like, this is anecdotal, right? This is not the definitive way, the process. This is the process that you have found in your experience has worked for you, right? So you are now documenting that process and sharing this knowledge with people about the process that you have followed and the information that you have received over the course of your career. And you have, of course, ended up with a Grammy. And this is what you did, like, again, as with all marketing, as with all, strategic kind of information, it is about, you take this information, take the best practice from it, and then you see how you can make it work best for you or even better for you. Like, you might find ways that are even better. But understanding, like I said, what I think you said is important is understanding these guidelines, what the do's and don'ts are. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people who play in the gray area of what is allowed and what it isn't, but it's only a matter of time before you are pulled up on it and you kind of have to face the consequences from it, which you said could be anywhere from, just being warned about it or completely.
There have been Recording Academy members over the years that have been expelled from the Academy, that projects have been removed because they were not following the rules. So you should follow the rules for two reasons. One, because that's the right thing to do. That's the ethical thing to do. And number two, because if you don't follow the rules, you might get in trouble and lose a privilege. And being a member of the Recording Academy is a privilege.
Of course.
And something very important, you asked me to name things that people should do. Number one thing that people should do is become a member of the Recording Academy.
The most obvious thing.
That's how, by becoming a member, you become part of a family, and then you understand more of how the whole process works. And let's not forget that the Recording Academy is not just about the Grammy Awards. That's only a small part of what the Recording Academy does.
Which is the thing.
It's about the Grammy Museum. The Recording Academy is about musicians. And as we know, the main theme of this recent Grammys was raising money for the victims of the recent fires in Los Angeles, especially our music family, people who lost their studios, their equipment, and their homes. So the Recording Academy is about fighting for musicians' rights and creator rights. Every year, we spend a lot of time lobbying in Washington about different issues that affect us as creators, whether it's AI, which is the latest thing, and trying to protect creators, embrace artificial intelligence, but at the same time protect our likeness and our voices from being misused out there without our permission, or whether it's one of the issues that's very dear to my heart is the Rap Act, which is about prosecutors and authorities cannot use your lyrics against you in a court of law. It's like an actor being prosecuted for a role he played in a movie, and he played a gangster in a movie or a killer in a movie, and then the authorities going after him because of the role he played in the movie.
Which sounds absurd. When you talk about it from a movie context, right? It sounds dumb that someone would actually do that.
But authorities have done it, and they are still doing it when it comes to music, especially with rap artists, where a rap artist might talk about some situation that is not even a true one. It's just lyrics of a song, talking about a gunfight or talking about a killing or talking about a bank robbery or whatever it might be. And then a prosecutor going and using such lyrics to put a person in jail. So we fight for things like that. One of the oldest fights that we're still fighting for is the Fairness Act for when music is played on terrestrial radio, and I'm talking about AM and FM, artists don't make any money from it. And I'm going to use a huge example. Beyonce. When a Beyonce song that she hasn't written herself is played on AM and FM, she doesn't make a single dollar. Only the songwriters make money from terrestrial radio.
Publishing itself, the publishing side.
Only the publishing side. So the masters, the artists, the labels do not make a dollar. And that's an old law that's over 100 years old or something like that. And we have been fighting it forever. And it's unfortunate because the broadcast companies have such strong lobby in Washington, they always seem to win. But of course, we haven't given up. So yes, the Recording Academy is behind all these things. So when you think of the Recording Academy, don't just think about Grammys. Think about
That's right.
supporting and fighting for creator rights. Think about supporting creators, whether it's mental health issues, financial assistance issues. It's all about educating, and especially you've been involved with Grammy U and embracing the younger generation and teaching them about the music industry. So the Recording Academy, it's about Grammy, the Grammy Museum, which is about preserving our heritage and music and stuff like that. So yes, the Recording Academy is more than just the Grammys.
And I realized that after becoming part of the Recording Academy, which is why I said I've been telling people I've become the evangelist for Recording Academy membership. I tell everyone I know, you should become a member. This is what the process is. And again, most people I know who feel like the Recording Academy is out of reach for them for some reason. Just because, in a way, it's kind of cool because it seems a very aspirational thing. But aspirational, it should always be aspirational. But you should never feel that you are detached or not relevant to that world. And that's the thing I try and educate people on is no, anyone can be a part of this organization. There are certain criteria. And when you become part of the Recording Academy, you realize, like you just said, that the Grammys are only one of the things that the Recording Academy does. Okay, of course, it's the shiniest and the biggest, publicly visible thing. But once you become part of the Recording Academy, you realize there's a lot of stuff that happens. There's advocacy programs, there's workshops, there's educational stuff. There's all these events that are held. There's the Grammy Museum, which is absolutely fantastic. I've been there. Every time I've been to LA, I've gone and visited, and it's just a very inspiring place to be. You kind of internalize why this is so important, the history of it, the people who have worked over the years to, bring it to this stage. When it comes to artists, you go there and you see all these, historical references to the story of the Grammys. I always believe, and I did a post about this, that if you're in LA, this is a place you have to come and allow yourself the time. Don't come in expecting to run through a 15-minute or half an hour visit. Allow yourself the time, especially if you are a creator of the art, to immerse yourself and let that kind of absorb the energy that this building definitely does give out. Sit there, look at the things and actually take the time to be in the moment and understand what you are looking at. And for me, I try and do that when I visit the Grammy Museum, is to just sit down there. It's like the same thing as visiting places like the Village, the studio. I sat in that console room and I just want to sit here and let some of the energy, the records that have been made in this place, from Fleetwood Mac to Dr. Dre to Snoop to, all these amazing works of music. I just sat there for 10 minutes on myself when I went to Walter's after party brunch thing. I just sat in the console room by myself for 5 minutes. I went, I want to just, please, whatever's sitting in the walls here, kind of let me internalize it. But I want to go back to, I know that you have been involved in a lot of projects around the Academy, a lot of advocacy programs. You do a lot of work in Washington. There is a lot of stuff happening with Music Cares that became a lot more obvious this year with all the fundraising and the support that was being given to music industry professionals who were affected by the LA fires. And not only we saw that happening before the awards, leading into the awards, but also during the entire day, we were constantly reminded about the things that the Academy does. So I think that is part of what people should know and be part of, and understand that when you are part of the Recording Academy, you are not just there to be in the shiny Grammy moment. You are part of a not-for-profit, technically, organization that is deeply entrenched into the industry in multiple ways. And there are so many ways that you can actually be involved outside of just, I want to attend the Grammys, I want to be voting and, all those kind of things. The ways that you can be involved, like you said, Grammy U was one of the things. I come from an educational background, so I love that. I love kind of, I used to teach entertainment marketing at a university here. So that was the first thing I went, oh, you have a mentorship program? That's fantastic. I'm in. Count me in. And then I approached it in such a systematic way. I think I shocked my mentee. Like, here's the lesson plan for the next 3 months. It's like, holy crap. It's like week 1, we will do this, and week 2, we will do this. And, but I loved it. And I think more people who are senior in the industry, doesn't matter where you sit in the industry, whether you're technical side or creative side, should become part of Grammy U, because you are, accelerating the learning curve of the next generation. What took you 20 years to figure out and took me 20 years to figure out, we shouldn't gatekeep that information. We should be, I don't believe in gatekeeping. And that's the thing I realized when I was in LA in that room, and all the events that around Grammy Week. It's such a amazing community. Everyone that I met at the family, the experience I had was so overwhelmingly welcoming. It's like, yes, here's this network, and people were happy to connect you and to their networks and give you information. I mean, as long as you went in there with a very genuine desire to make genuine friendships, and of course, there's always going to be some kind of strategic undertone to some of the things, but if you overarchingly are in that room just to shake hands with people and go, it's lovely to meet you, and what do you do, and I'd love to know what you do, and to build those genuine relationships, people pick up on that. People pick up on your energy if you're genuine. And I found it amazing. People were having, come to this, I'm going here, come and meet this person, come and meet this person. So for me, it felt like I immediately advanced my career by 5 years, just by being involved in the events of Grammy Week. And I think that's the other thing I want to tell people is, doesn't matter whether you're nominated or not, try and be there at this time. Try and be in LA and be part of these events at this time, because you learn so much. You meet so many people. The people I'd connected with online over the year, being in the same room physically with these people is so much more solidifying for your relationship, right? So I think that for me, that was the thing about everything that happens around the Recording Academy, everything that the Recording Academy does. Being part of those things, they say be an active member of the Recording Academy. Doesn't matter what part of the world you're in. Admittedly enough, a lot of the programs that the Recording Academy does are very kind of USA-centric, which is something I'm hoping to evolve. I want to bring Recording Academy programs to places like Australia and India, because to take away that assumption that the Grammys are not for us. A lot of big Australian artists, a lot of amazing creators I know here, they have that assumption that, oh, it's an American thing. We don't, how are we going to be part of that world? Like, I'm part of that world. You actually know somebody who's part of that world. What does that tell you? It means, yes, that you too can be part of that world, right? And I'm not sure what the experience you've had is with people in Europe, and because you are so multidimensional culturally. You're, Greek origin, and now you live in New York and you're part of that world, but you're also part of the reggae world. What do you think, what has been your experience with, the Jamaican music and communities outside of predominant US-centric in terms of awareness of this whole thing?
Well, the Grammys have been an American institution. However, over the last few years, Harvey and Manus have traveled the world, bringing more and more people from other parts of the world together, because they want to expand the Grammys to be an international thing. They were in South Africa, they were in Ghana, they were in the Middle East, I believe. So they are taking the time to embrace other countries, other cultures, other genres of music. Because of the nature of the Grammys as we know them today, obviously the Grammys will be stronger in English-speaking countries. You like it in Australia, English-speaking. So you have Australia, you have Canada, you have the UK. So obviously projects that come out of such countries which are English-speaking, will be closer to the concept of the Grammys. Even though, as you know, there are categories like global music, where a lot of Indian creators are very strong at. But in general, the majority of the Grammys are for English speaking creators are for English language projects. Now, that doesn't mean that something that's in Italian or Swahili or any other language doesn't have a chance to become part of it. It just means that, at least for now, it's more English-centric, language-wise. Of course, you have the Latin Grammys, which are more Spanish-centric.
Yes.
So, but as you can see, a lot of other genres are being embraced. Over the last couple of years, we've had African performance as a category, which didn't exist 3 years ago. A lot of the African projects used to be part of the global music. Now they have their own category. Of course, for a long time now, we've had reggae, which is Jamaican. So I think the Grammys over time are going to expand and become more international, even though the center, at least for now, is still the US.
Yeah, 100%. I think, the thing I want to touch on, which you kind of went to there, was there's two schools of thought, right? Music is music, and the language should not be a thing that defines a certain criteria, right? But certain categories or certain types of music are starting to get so strong that they are now creating their own genres within the Recording Academy or the awards process. You said African music was one of them, and to an extent that's nice, because then that gives you a separate showcase for a certain kind of genre, and you're not diluting the competition too much. It's not fair then, so you have someone who's an African music creator competing with someone who's an Indian music creator. So while that would be very interesting, it, I think, allows for slightly bit more focus, I suppose. And curious to me, because now there's all these other, like K-pop, for example, as, over the past, I would say 7 or 8 years, has become almost so mainstream in its appeal. And it's not just an Asian thing anymore. My wife loves BTS and, she's of Indian origin. So as do their fans all over the world. The argument, I suppose, or the debate around splitting off music into its language or cultural-based orientations as opposed to style, as opposed to music genre. For example, BTS is a pop group, so shouldn't it just be pop? But then there could be a Korean jazz group. So would they go into the Korean award section, or would they go
when
into
it comes
jazz?
to certain categories, it really doesn't make a difference where you're from.
Yes.
Because we have plenty of Indian musicians compete in jazz and win in jazz too.
Yes.
Right? So, for example, jazz, which a large part of it could be instrumental. You can be an Indian jazz group. You can be a Peruvian jazz group. So certain categories, it makes no difference where you're from. But of course, if you're going to be competing in pop music or dance music, there is a good chance your project has to be an English-speaking project, unless it's an instrumental, of course. The Academy looks at trends and decides of new categories to add. Who is to say that maybe next year or 2 years from now, they might not add a K-pop? The way they make such decisions, I believe, is based on demand. It has to come from us, the members.
Right.
We have to suggest things. So if they see enough interest from within the members to have a K-pop category, then they will consider potentially creating one. Like they created a couple of years ago, the African performance category. Obviously, they cannot start creating 100 new categories every year.
Of course.
They have to figure out, okay, what's big? What's the next big thing? Should we have a category? There are many factors that go in there, but don't think that the decision makers within the Academy don't look at that. But it has to come from us. There has to be enough interest from voting members to support the category. We from the Caribbean, we've been arguing a lot because we want separate reggae and dancehall, because a lot of dancehall music projects compete within reggae, because that's all there is. And there's been an argument, we need a separate category that's going to be dancehall separate than reggae. The way to compare it is R&B and rap. Right now, in terms of Jamaica and that genre of music, They have dancehall and reggae in one, which is like having rap and R&B in one.
Yeah, which I see how that wouldn't make sense for that.
At the same time, there has to be enough of a strong voice from within the voting members to justify creating a separate category.
Yeah, and it has to be strong enough that the category is going to sustain. So I think that's why there's no point in creating a category
Just
for
because
1
something
year.
is today.
And then next year, there isn't anything happening there. There might be like 10 submissions in that category. So I think you're right. So it has to be something that they see is not just a flash in the pan trend anymore. It's something that has become a legitimate body of work and is going to sustain itself.
Now they add, there might be other categories that might be fading out. For example, a long time ago when I first joined the academy, there was a category called polka music, which was eventually faded. But polka was a recording academy category for a very, very long time. But eventually polka music faded out and it's pretty much almost non-existent anymore. And at some point they removed it because the interest wasn't there anymore. So you cannot keep on adding, you have to balance it out. If you're going to add one or two or three, there might be a case of one or two might be fading out because that genre is not happening anymore.
Right.
I don't think there are that many members today who are fans of polka music.
I think, look, we've gone through some amazing things, and I'm always, thank you very much for your time. You've been very generous with your information.
And I have to run to the studio too.
I know, and I'm very conscious of time. So I think, look, I want to just close by saying, I think your book is something that I wish I'd written. It's going to be a really valuable, insightful piece of information, for people who are in the industry to kind of understand the process. Yes, we can talk about it a lot as well, but having it there as in the format of a book is going to be always a thing. And I love the title, of it is. We'll put some links for people to go and check the book out and, to follow you on all your platforms and follow your music. And it's been inspiring. So I think, thank you very much again.
Thank you. It was fun talking. It was fun talking to you. It's great. It's great to have you in Melbourne. But I might be visiting you one of these days.
Oh, please. You're always welcome. You always have a friend here. And, I'm hoping to catch up again. Like I said, we could sit here and talk for the next 2 hours about all the joys of the world we're in. And it's an amazing world. I think, like I said, it's a privilege to be in this world. You should enjoy it. Like there's other things that you could be doing for a living that aren't as enjoyable as what we do. I sometimes have to sit back and actually, understand that. You get so caught up in the day-to-day of what we do sometimes that we don't sit back and go, this is fantastic. Look at what we do. Like we're making things out of thin air. Music is one of those few things that you're creating a piece of art out of thin air. Right? With every other artistic thing, you need, vertical. You have raw materials. Painting has its paint and canvas. But here's just something that comes from an idea and ends up being, something at the end. That to me, that's always a fascinating thing. And I think, so again, we're going to stay in touch. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I know you've got a studio session to head off, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you, Alexx.
Great. Have a wonderful, day? Because it's morning there, right?
It's 10 a.m. in the morning now. And
what I wanted to do, 6 p.m. I'm about to head to the studio. Well, folks, make great music, work hard, and follow the rules to properly market your project. So maybe one day you too can be nominated and win a Grammy.
That's perfect. Thank you very much, Alexx.